time, my mother always made a brisket. It was her famous dish, so I'm stealing it from Mom. Thanks, Mom. We're going to make a brisket. A brisket is traditionally a tough cut of meat. It's a cut of meat that the animal uses a lot, so therefore it's exercised well. But if it's cooked right, it's a delicious cut. You might find brisket in barbecue sauce on a sandwich, but we're going to make it in a traditional sort of Mideastern style. So I've got my brisket. Has fat on it. I want to leave the fat on it. I want to leave the fat on it because at the end of the cooking process, I'm going to cut that fat off. I want to get that flavor from the fat. So I want to get the tenderness and the flavor. So I'm going to salt and pepper my brisket. I'm going to be real liberal with the salt and pepper, and I want to season all of it. I have some hot olive oil, or you can use any kind of oil you have, in a hot pan, and I want to make a sear on my meat. Therefore, I want to make some caramelization. I want that sugar in the meat. Yep, there's sugar in meat. I want the sugar in the meat to caramelize and start making a nice brown bit on the bottom so I can add some liquid and get those flavor bits right up. Okay, so basically salt and pepper is all you need. I'm going to put this in this hot oil. It's going to sizzle quite hot. That's good. You want that nice sear. So I'm going to leave my meat. When you're searing meat, you definitely don't want to move it. You want to get that brown part happening. To get the brown part, you have to let it sit. Most people like to play with their meat, especially a burger on the grill, and they want to poke at it. That's the best not to do here. You will definitely want to make sure that your meat's browning. If you want to poke at it, then peek at the bottom, and if you see some brown happening, which this is going to be browning quickly, then you may turn it, and then you'll get browning on the other side. What you don't want to do, the reason you want to have it at a high heat, what you don't want to do is add water to it. So if you have it at a low heat, what happens is the juices come out of the meat, which is not what you want, and you want just the sear on the outside and the juices to stay on the inside. So again, you need that high heat. I'm just going to peek, and this is really already brown. This is a quick stove. I don't know if you can see, but it's very brown and crusty on the bottom, and that's what you want to see. I might add my liquid now, but I want to make sure that the bottom is crusty also. Because again, with all that brown meat comes good flavor and lots of sweetness. So I'm going to peek underneath my meat in just a sec. The stove is very fast and very hot, and I can see that my meat is nice and brown. So, it's basically a pot roast. With any good pot roast, you want to add several layers of flavor. I'm going to go ahead and add some red wine. Any red wine you had would do. Carefully. Ooh, that looks good. And I'm adding a can of tomato sauce. When you add tomato sauce, you want to rinse the can out. So you're going to get some liquid off of that. It's okay to bathe this in liquid at first. It's going to braise. And in this case, there's a lot of liquid here, so I will cook it uncovered in my oven. And coating that with that nice tomato sauce on top is great. And next I'm going to add vegetables. Now I happen to have a half a tomato left. Why not throw it in my pot roast? It works. I've got some carrots cut up. If I had celery or if I had turnips, that would be great in here too. I'm going to put these in my pot. And this is going to cook low and slow on a low oven for probably good 3 hours. You do not want the brisket so that it falls apart. You want it so that it's going to be sliceable. And all these vegetables and all the tomatoes and the wine and the salt, it's going to make a wonderful, wonderful gravy. So, if you notice I didn't cut my vegetables small, I don't need to. I don't need to at all. There's no garlic here, but you could put garlic in it if you liked. And there, you have it. That was easy. Brisket, it goes right in the oven, and in a little bit, we're going to take it out, make some gravy out of that lovely stock, and eat it. Yum. See you in a bit. Well, I pulled my brisket out, and it's been about 5 hours, and I've sliced the brisket, and look how tender it is. It's beautiful. I sliced it against the grain, which means I didn't slice along the way the meat is structured. So I sliced it against the grain, which is what you need to do with a not so tender cut of beef. So I've trimmed my fat, I've sliced my beef. I'm going to make a sauce now. I've got my food processor, and I have this lovely stock. Look at that. It's so thick and rich. It has the tomatoes, and it has the carrots, and it has the onions. So all of my thick, rich broth with my vegetables are in my food processor. I can also make it thinner by just adding some water. That would be just fine. It's warm, and it's ready to go. So let's turn it on and see how it does. And we give it another sec. And in no time, we have a lovely, lovely sauce that we're going to put over our brisket. I'm going to ladle it over the top. And you are ready for your holiday meal. Gets the potatoes out, salad, and you're all set. Enjoy. One of the favorite treats at our house is a falafel. It's a chickpea ball or a fritter, which is popular in Mid-Eastern cuisine, or at any time, anywhere, and any place. They're crispy, they're good, they're healthy, and they're delicious. So we're going to make some falafels today. So I've got a food processor, and I'm going to basically chop some onion in my food processor. I want to make sure that my onion is not too finely ground, but I want it to be, I want it to have some texture. And there we go. We'll give it another sec. Perfect. And my onion's done. I'm doing my onion separately from my chickpeas because I don't want my onion to ground. I want some texture on the onion. You can see where we have some crunch and texture. Okay. The next thing you're going to do if you're making this recipe is you're going to grind the chickpeas. Chickpeas, garbanzo beans, same idea. You want them ground so that you have some sort of texture to them, and it's a 15-ounce can. I'm going to go ahead and put some garlic in there because I really prefer my garlic to be ground up nicely. I'm going to put some fresh mint in, which is going to give it an aroma that you won't even believe. It's delicious. And some fresh parsley. Lots of fresh herbs. That's the great key to this. Now, I'm going to take my mixture and I'm going to grind this up until it has mostly all of it ground, but a little bit of texture. Okay, and that looks just perfect. You can see the pieces of chickpea and you can see some pieces of the herbs. We've got our chickpeas. I even see a couple of chickpeas in there. That's good. With our onions for good flavor. I'm going to drizzle a little olive oil in it. I'm going to give it some moistness and some flavor and some good nutrition. I'm going to go ahead and use some cumin. I use cumin, I like the smoky flavor, and some salt and pepper. And some flour. This is going to help bind it. It's a fritter, so it's going to help bind the mixture. Good. And I have some breadcrumbs. I have unseasoned breadcrumbs, but you could certainly use seasoned if you had to. And seasoned breadcrumbs work great. And for a little liquid and refreshing flavor, lemon juice, fresh lemon juice, of course. And what I'm going to do is add some yogurt. You could use eggs. And I'm going to check my mixture for moisture. I don't want my mixture too moist. On the other hand, I want it to hold together into one ball. So I'm mixing it up, and The eggs or the yogurt, whatever you had on hand as a binding agent, would work together to bind this. I'm going to add half my yogurt and see how the texture looks. I like the tang of the yogurt, and it adds some nutrition and it adds some calcium, which is all important to all of us. And when you're doing this, you want to just, again, check for texture. I'm going to clearly need some more moisture, so I'm going to go ahead and add all of my yogurt into this mixture. There's the yogurt. And it's bound nicely. Okay, I can use my fingers to roll it into balls, and I think that's what I'll do. And you want it to be light and fluffy. There's a little baking powder in there to help it rise. So my mixture almost looks like a meat mixture. It's a great meat substitute. That's the other thing about a falafel. It's a great meat substitute. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my falafel and I'm going to gather it into a ball, and I'm going to put it into a patty. So I'm going to show you the various shapes. I'm going to put that into my hot oil. It should sizzle. You can make the falafel into a shape like this and then roll it into a tube. If you wanted to put it in a sandwich, you could even put it on a stick and fry it on a stick and then eat it on a stick, or like a shish kebab. So it almost looks like a little hot dog. And they work really, really well as a meat substitute or as an appetizer on a sandwich over rice. So versatile. It's a great dish. It mixes real well with a side dish of maybe some hummus or some yogurt, which is what we're going to do today. Looking good. You want to make sure that they are cooked on the inside. So you want to make sure that they're brown. Before you turn them, make sure that they're brown on the outside. All right, so we've been turning our falafels, and you can see they have a nice golden brown crust on the outside, and that means they're probably done on the inside. We haven't made them too large. I want to make sure that raw egg's all cooked up. And I'm going to go ahead and serve them. This would be great. This tube shape would be great for a sandwich, and the patty you can just serve on top of rice. It all works every way. Okay. There they are, our cute little falafels. Now, falafels are traditionally served with a yogurt sauce. It could be a tzatziki sauce, which would have a sesame paste in it. I went for a lighter version, and basically it's Greek yogurt, and I have some fresh mint, some salt and pepper, and I'm mixing it together in this bowl. You could certainly add cucumber if you so chose to do so. And I'm just going to put a little bit on our falafels. And there you have it, a nice healthy lunch, appetizer, sandwich, or whatever you'd like. Enjoy. Dish at my house is a potato latke. We enjoy these often for breakfast, for dinner, and for lunch. And they're nice if you like to make little tiny ones for appetizers. So they're great for any kind of meal, snack, or otherwise. So what I've done is we have shredded some potatoes, and I've shredded some onions, and you really want to take a paper towel and you want to make sure they're really dry. You do not want water in these potatoes and onions. There's two reasons. One, it's going to water down the batter, and two, when you put this water in the hot oil, it's just going to sputter. So we're going to try to keep ourselves safe today, and you don't want any water in your batter. So I've got this, and I've got it mixed up in this bowl with the onions. I am going to go ahead and add some salt and pepper to that. You definitely need salt with potatoes. And some flour, which helps bind it. Adds that. You could use whole wheat flour if you wanted to. In fact, you could use cornstarch, whatever you had. And egg. Egg helps bind it as well. Okay, and you want your oil, I've got oil here, relatively hot, but not smoking. My oil seems very hot. So you have to play with the temperature a little bit. If the oil starts to smoke, turn down the heat. So I'm mixing my mixture, and I do not want it moist, but I do not want it dry either. And I'll be able to tell you, if you had to, you could add a little bit more flour to it. You could add breadcrumbs to it. In fact, what makes nice latkes is adding other vegetables. So a shredded zucchini in here would be great, shredded carrots. We're going to go for the traditional potato today, but you could definitely add other vegetables. Meats, you could add chicken or any kind of beef or any kind of pork if you so chose that. All right, so you can see that it's really, really dense and it's not very watery, and that's exactly what we want. Okay, one thing we want to do is we want to make sure that the potato is cooked and the flour is cooked, and yet it doesn't burn. So that can be challenging. It seems easy to do this, but it's a little harder than it looks. The other thing you want to do is when you put your latke batter into your oil, you want to make sure that you are not going to turn that latke no matter what until it's crispy on the bottom. If you do, you're going to have a big mess, and it's going to spread everywhere, and it's not going to be just what you wanted. Okay? So you're going to take your mixture and about maybe 1/3 of a cup for this size, and you're going to put it in your hot boiling oil. Try to keep it in one space. You can make them any size you want, of course. You could even make a great big one. And you don't want them too puffy or high, because again, you want to make sure that those potatoes get cooked. The thinner they are, the better that'll work. Okay. So you just gently put them in. You don't want to get burned, so you want to gently put them in just in case your oil's too hot. And give them enough space to cook, enough space to brown. So you don't want to overcrowd your pan. I'm going to make 4 for now, and we can always make some more later. That's the nice thing about this particular mixture. It can stay in the refrigerator for several hours if you'd like it to. I'm going to set that aside. What would you serve this with? Traditional service would be an applesauce, or I have some sour cream with some scallions on top, and that would work really well. Now, how are you going to tell if your latke is ready to turn? I really want it in one piece. I want it browned. So I'm going to just peek at them. They probably should not stick, but on occasion they might. So I see some golden brown on the bottom of these. I'm going to go ahead and turn them. I want to be very careful I don't burn myself. So I want a second tool that I'm going to put the second tool here. Okay, and we're going to turn these. You can see that golden brown color. And it's also staying in one piece. That's because I had those potatoes really well drained. And you can see all the golden brown potatoes and all the good onions. And we're being careful in turning them. And you want to make sure that they're cooking enough. Let them cook on the other side. Don't rush through these. And they're going to be just great when we're done. You want to make sure that the other side browns as well. Give it enough time, enough space, and you'll have a great product. All right, those are looking pretty nice and golden brown. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to drain it on a fork, and I can just let the grease just kind of drip off. And what we're going to do is just let the grease drip off, and we're going to put a couple on our plate and enjoy. Look at that, that looks great. That little one got done fast. I'm going to take this one out. Again, if you just let it sit on that fork, some of the oil is just going to drain right off. Yum. I can't wait to eat these. I'm so excited. And notice how they stayed in one piece. That's what you want in a good latke. The little one's for me. And there you have it. They didn't take long, they're easy, and they're yummy. Latkes. Enjoy. now it's time to make the Jewish oil cake. So it's a cake that doesn't have any butter or shortening, and it has liquid oil, which can be used for, you can use any kind of oil basically for it. You can use olive oil if you'd like. I'm going to use canola oil today. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix my dry ingredients separately from my wet ingredients. And we want to do that because what we want to do is, if we've got flour here, which I do have, I'm going to put some flour in my bowl. The flour can get a little lumpy. And I've got salt and I've got baking powder. Now, I don't want lumps of baking powder and salt when I get mixing with my liquids. Otherwise, what's going to happen is I'm going to have a spot that's going to taste salty, and we're going to have a spot that might rise a little bit more than others, and that's maybe why your cake would turn out lopsided. That could cause that. So I've actually mixed my dry ingredients together, and next what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and mix our liquid ingredients together. That takes some time, which is okay, and it's quickly put together once we're done with that. So I'm going to use 2 cups of sugar. You could use any kind of sugar you wanted. Brown sugar would work, but I'm going to use white sugar. Okay. And I'm going to use just a little bit of orange juice. I've got 1/4 cup. It gives it a nice bright flavor and a pretty color too. And don't be alarmed at this, but it has a cup of oil. Most people put butter in a cake, but this is a nice healthy version. Again, if you wanted to use a healthier oil, this is a great option for you. Add 2½ teaspoons of vanilla. Don't use the fake stuff. Use the real vanilla, the nice vanilla, preferably soaked in bourbon, which is always the best. And then I'm going to go ahead and add 4 eggs, and I've got them broken already. Make sure that you don't have any shells or blood spots, and I'm going to put my eggs into my bowl. And then we are going to mix this up. It takes about 10 minutes, and I'm using an electric mixer here, but when we're done with using our electric mixer, then it'll be all nice and fluffy. My aim is to add some air to this and to get all the mixture incorporated. So I'm going to start this, and make sure you're scraping down the sides with your rubber scraper. Okay. All right, we're all mixed. You'll notice that there are bubbles in my mixture, and it's all homogeneous, meaning it's all one level. If there's no oil floating on top, that's what you want. And what we just made was an emulsion. Basically, we mixed oil and liquids together. So that is a part of the reason we have to mix it for so long, so that unlike an Italian dressing that separates, this mixture is going to stay together. Then, as I said, we mixed our dry ingredients together before, which is good. We're going to add our dry ingredients just a little at a time, and I'm going to use the electric mixer to do so, making sure I'm going to scrape the sides of the bowl with my rubber scraper. So I'm just going to go ahead and add a little bit at a time, maybe about 1/4 of the mixture at a time, and I'm going to mix it. Try not to get your flour everywhere, in your face, wherever. It goes slow with you mixing your flour. And my last batch of flour. Don't overmix this. Don't overmix it. Right, that's very good. Now I'm going to tell you why you don't want to overmix this. You don't want to overmix this batter because you don't want to develop the gluten. The gluten is the protein in the flour. And if you're making a bread dough, you really, really want to knead it a lot so that the bread is elastic and stretchy. You want your cake to be tender. And that looks like a beautiful batter. So I'm going to start with about 1/3 of my batter, and I'm going to spread it into the pan slowly so as not to get batter all over the counter. And you want, with a bun pan, to not get it in the center. And you can adjust that with a little finger there. That's what you do at home. Don't tell anybody. And so we have 1/3 of the batter. And then I'm going to use about 1/3 of the apples. And I don't need to layer my apples in any beautiful order because they're going to go in the middle of the cake. All right, so I've put about 1/3 of my apples in, and then I've got some chopped walnuts. When we put our walnuts in, any kind of nut would do, and you certainly could eliminate the nuts. But they add to the crunch, and they also add to the nutritional value. Then I'm going to sprinkle my layer here with some cinnamon sugar. That doesn't have to be an exact measurement, whatever you like. And next layer, more batter. It's starting to get gooey now. And you want about 1/3 again, because you want this in thirds. And you're going to top it with and finish it with the batter. I like to put a few apples on the top and save those so that I can see what's in my cake. And this is all going to go blend together anyway, so it really doesn't matter. If you have a middle layer and you're worried about getting some apples or cinnamon in the batter, you can go ahead and put the batter in small batches around, and so it's easier to spread. But I'm going to put most of my apples here in this layer again. So I'm just going to save a few for the top because I like to see when I make my cake, I'm sure you like to see that too, what's in it. Sprinkling with some more nuts. And I'm going to save a few for the top. And I'm just going to go ahead and put all of my sugar and cinnamon right in there. And I'm going to finish with my batter. Now, if you didn't get this batter perfectly on here, it's okay. The cake is going to somewhat melt together, and if it's not looking perfect, it's fine. It'll be just fine. Because what's going to happen is the cake's going to rise, and it's going to cover those apples. I'm just going to finish with a few apples and a few nuts on top. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my cake in the oven. We'll see you in about an hour.